Hi, my name is Eva Steiner, and this is my project Psychotherapists Around the Globe. I am interviewing the psychotherapists around the world and asking them the same 8 questions. I am wondering how mental health profession is in their country. Today we are going to. Thank you for taking this time for doing this interview with me. Before we start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So, my name is Uma Parvez. I am a clinical psychologist and an EMDR therapist. I have also worked as lecturer at various universities, but currently I'm serving as a clinical psychologist at HealthX, which is a multinational telehealth care company organization. So it's 24/7 based organization in which we have doctors, nutritionists, psychologists on board. It's a healthcare management company.
Tell me a little bit about your culture. What is some holiday or tradition that your
Mhm.
country celebrates? And if your culture would be an emotion, what emotion would it be?
Talking about Pakistani culture, I feel so overwhelmed because our culture is really very beautiful. It is incredibly diverse, and the religion that we follows, that is Islam. And in this religion, we have different traditions, regional influences, and many other things which make our culture very beautiful. If I talk about Islam, so we have various influencing things and daily life aspects which makes our culture very beautiful, which includes the Islamic religion, food, the dresses, the social customs that we follows. And majority of Pakistanis are Muslims here, but we have other Islamic practices and rituals also going on in our country. If we talk about the languages that are spoken in Pakistani culture, so we are linguistically diverse. We have Urdu being the national language and English being the official language. Other languages are also spoken in the Pakistani culture, which are basically Pashto, Punjabi, Sindhi, Saraiki. So this makes our culture linguistically diverse. Other than that, if I talk about the Pakistani cuisines, so we have some very rich, full cuisines here, which includes biryani, kebab, nihari, halim. So these are different cuisines in our culture. And apart from that, we have a very rich tradition of poetry in Pakistani culture, which includes poetry of Allama Iqbal, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, which holds a very special place in our Pakistani culture. Moreover, if I talk about the festives, we have different religious festives going on in Pakistani culture, but mainly we have two significant festives that are Eid ul-Fitr and Eid ul-Adha that we celebrate after the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan is very close to our heart because in this Islamic culture, the month of Ramadan allows us to give charity to the poor people, to take care of them, to have a fast of continuous 12 to 14 hours that we break in the evening. And after that, we eat some food, we have some drinks. And after this month of Ramadan, it is of 30 days that we fast and do charity and prayers and everything. And after that month of Ramadan, we celebrate Eid ul-Fitr. And as a celebration of the month, it is like a gift from God given to us for the fast that we have kept for Him and the prayers that we have did for Him. Eid ul-Fitr is like a celebration where we have our relatives around us and we make that festives with making different and delicious dishes at home. We have gatherings over at our place and we celebrate these occasions as such. If we talk about Pakistan as an emotion, I would say this culture would be a mix of warmth and resilience, because despite of having numerous challenges, there is a strong sense of community and hospitality among the Pakistani culture, that we care for each other, we try to understand each other, we try to stand still in times of obstacles and in times of difficulties for each other and thrive and strive to the situation.
how did you become a psychotherapist in your country, and what is your psychotherapeutic approach?
Okay. Talking about being a psychotherapist as in Pakistani culture, there is a process that the individuals go through. And in that process, we firstly have to do a bachelor's. That is a 4 years degree program of psychology. And after that, we have a 2 years master's or MPhil, that is research program. After that, a certain psychotherapists continue to have different certifications in either EMDR or either any counseling or psychotherapy dimensions, or we have some other licensings also. So after doing bachelor's 4 years, master's or MPhil 2 years, that makes sum up of 6 years. After that, we can continue our clinical practice into the hospitals, the clinics, and some of the therapists also work at the industries, the organizations, the NGOs. So there is a wide variety of professional experiences that we can gain after we complete the qualification of being a psychotherapist. So once qualified psychotherapist in Pakistan may practice in these different dimensions and can address to the variety of complaints that the clients brings up, including depression, anxiety, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That could be suicidal ideation, sexual dysfunctions. So yes, this is how the psychotherapist gets built up in Pakistan. And if you ask about the psychotherapeutic approach that I use, or mostly that is being used in Pakistan, is mainly CBT. If the client likes to have an organized approach and like to work on the negative patterns of life, so this is what is recommended. Otherwise, what I do is I take an integrative approach towards psychotherapy, which includes tailoring to the needs of the clients, which is needed, and listening to the presenting complaints. I try to accommodate the client's needs, and interventions I plan accordingly, and hence I use different approaches, including CBT. If there is some internal or childhood work or some unconscious work to be done, then I use psychodynamic. Other than that, humanistic is always on the go, because you have to be empathetic, genuine, and show unconditional positive regard to the client. So that is always on the side. That is never replaced. Apart from that, if emotions are to be tapped, so specifically I use DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy.
And in Pakistan, do you need psychology bachelor and psychology master, or you have like directly psychotherapy? Because we distinguish between psychotherapy and psychology, similar in Pakistan or not?
Yes, psychotherapist and psychologist. If we talk about the psychotherapist, so they need an extensive training apart from being a psychologist, because after psychologist becomes after masters. So plain bachelor's 4 years, and after that 2 years degree of masters make you a associate clinical psychologist or a clinical psychologist. If you do some advanced courses and your experience widens throughout the time, so then you become a psychotherapist, and then you have the ability to using different approaches and different therapeutic kinds and modules, and then you can be a psychotherapist depending upon the experience that you have and the diverse qualification that you gain over time.
How society looks upon psychotherapy or any psychological help?
Okay. Talking specifically about Pakistani culture, I would say historically there was not much awareness about the psychological help, but with the passage of time, it has become very much common that people are coming for help, especially the teenagers and the adolescents population is always on the go for having the psychological help whenever they have anxiety issues, performance issues, social anxiety, depression, or any kind of such symptoms they experience. So there is so much awareness that they easily determine that they are going through something and they need some professional help. So alhamdulillah, with the passage of time, this awareness has been in schools and communities, and there has been so much of in demand for the psychologist that now mostly every school in Pakistan has a psychologist over board. Every NGO, every organization has a psychologist on board. Even the forces that we have, the army, the navy, the other forces that we have of Pakistan, everyone have psychologist on panel to see if the candidate is going through something or if the candidate needs some psychological help over the time. So yes, this is so much in demand for now.
And how do you get this help? Is it through public health system or through private pay or both?
It can be through both, because we have so many NGOs here in Pakistan that are working free of cost for the welfare and mental health of the population. Other than that, there are also private practices going on. So when there are people who are white collar, so we offer private practices for them. We offer online sessions for them. Then we have clinics specifically for them. There they can reach to help for mental health issues. And also there are NGOs that work equally good for the mental health of people.
And is there any psychotherapy, psychology law?
So if we talk about the law and authority figures in Pakistani culture or in Pakistan, so unfortunately, there have not been any boards up till now that keep some regulations and ethics going on. But a good psychotherapist or a good organization always hires those psychotherapists or those psychologists who are in supervisions or who follows the ethics and the rules stated by the American Psychological Board.
If I return back to the awareness and acceptance of mental health, what do you think brought this awareness?
The increasing cases, the increasing dilemmas, the increasing disorders that we are having, the inflations that we are having in our culture, the increasing need for talking about, for creating mental health awareness, for talking to people, because the social economic status, I would say, has played an important role in getting people towards depression, towards anxiety, because they are concerned towards their families, towards their children. They need a lot of help. They are disturbed. They are stressed. So increasing rate of disorders, of disturbances, of discomforts in the society has equally contributed to the raise in the awareness.
And what are or were some mental health stigmas in Pakistan?
That you are crazy if you are going towards a psychologist or a psychotherapist, or you are not close towards your religion. That is why you have to seek therapy or you have to seek counseling or professional help. So yes, there are those stigmas as well. But as I stated before, that with the current awareness that is going on these days, this has lessened a lot. But obviously there are exceptions and there are such people as well in the culture. But this has lessened to very large extent.
What is your society teaching about child-parent relationship, and whether this value of society also influence how you design your interventions as a therapist?
This is a very important and significant question, because in Pakistani culture, we have a collectivist society. So when we talk about collectivist society, mostly people live in joint families, and the nuclear system or individualist society is very limited here in Pakistan. So because of that, we have to see that from where or which family or which background the client is coming from, because probing the family dynamics is very important for a psychotherapist to understand that in what environment and what social environment the client is living, so as to amend the interventions that we are going to apply. So a child parent relationship is typically concerned with the central to the family dynamics and the upbringing of the child. So traditional values have a larger aspect and impact on the client's mental health. So it's a very major part which has to be tapped in depth to know each problem that the client is bringing up. So the importance of family cohesion, harmony, everything is important to know about the client. And parents are seen as the authority figures, and not only parents, the grandparents are also seen as the primary caregivers or authority figures in the family. So we have to know all about the client in terms of the family to amend the interventions that we are going to apply. So culture norms play a great part in child-parent relationship, as in Pakistani culture. So the therapist can design interventions based on that and address those relationships in particular. So we have to cater to the respect for the authority that the client have. They can be parents, they can be grandparents. Then we have a collectivist society, so we have to keep that in mind, that we cannot ask the child or the client or the client's parent to change some things in the family, because they are not living alone, they are living with a couple of people around. So we have to develop interventions which caters to everyone at the same time. So we have to keep in mind that if we are training the client for something, then it should be something which others are not bothered about. Everyone in the circle should be attuned to what we are teaching to the client. So it becomes very difficult at times, because sometimes the environment is very toxic, and bringing the client out of that environment is very much difficult. But we can do that with the efforts. We can work with the challenges that we face in such families, and it also works because they are from that family. They know the tactics that are being used in the family, so they are very attuned to how to get over it. They just need some help. Then gender roles has a big impact on the interventions that we use towards the client, because in Pakistani culture, in some families, boys are addressed differently as compared to girls. Girls have different values as compared to boys, which are implemented by the families. So we have to keep that in mind to promote healthy attitudes and relationships towards the family, and at the same time to empower the client to have a challenge with the situation and with the family, and being irrespective of the gender norms that are being created in the family. Moreover, the culture plays an important part. That coming to this point, I have a very interesting insight that you might have, that there is also being initiated an Islamic integrated psychotherapy in Pakistani culture nowadays. It is because religion has also a major aspect or impact on our mental health. Islamic integrated psychotherapy helps us bring the culture and as well as the religion into the insights of the client, so that they also get help from the creator. So psychotherapy also goes hand in hand, and religious psychotherapy helps the client to build insight related to the religious aspect as well. And then the education and the empowerment, we can say the client along with the parents and the grandparents, as I told you that it's a collectivist society, to have we have to educate everyone there, which is causing problem into the client's life. So it's kind of a holistic perspective that we see towards the client and not as an individual only.
And you work with the whole family, or just with one individual, or with each individual in the family separately?
We
How do you
firstly
work?
work with the client who comes in. And if we find any family dynamics that are being toxic towards the client or that are creating problems, then we extend our therapeutic approach towards either towards the parents or either towards the family. So we then take in different approaches, keeping in mind the need of the client.
And is the family open to come
Sometimes they
and
do,
work
and
together?
sometimes they don't. So we work accordingly, whatever suits the client.
Can you tell me more about the Islamic
Uh,
integrated psychotherapy?
I can. So, Islamic integrated psychotherapy basically involves the religious aspects of our culture. We can say that are concerned for having peace in life, for having tranquility in life, for having consistency in life, and a feeling of satisfaction in life. So, if I talk about my religion, so there are some specific duas, specific sayings of Quran and Hadith that is being taught to us in our religion, which is associated with having satisfaction, associated with having peace, tranquility, commitment, consistency. So when we apply those things along with the psychotherapy and ask the client to practice those aspects of religion as well, so the clients are reporting having much peaceful life because they are close to religion. So that aspects also comes in, that yes, they are close to religion, which was some stigma that they are not close to religion, that is why they are being in depression or they are being anxious. So that aspect is also catered, and along with that, the psychotherapy, the CBT, the DBT, whatever works for them is also working along with that. So it is basically an amalgamation of both the things, the religion and the psychotherapy aspects that is going on.
What are the learned beliefs regarding client-therapist relationship? And can the relationship continue outside the therapy once the therapy process is over?
So for me is that you have to be empathetic, genuine, and have the unconditional positive regard towards the client. You should be non-judgmental, but at the same time, you have to draw some boundaries that the client knows their place and the therapist knows their place. So the chances for transference and counter transference gets lesser. Apart from that, the relationship as a therapist can continue, that if, for example, I see my client in some social gathering or in some way around, and if the client is okay and comfortable with me having greetings with them, so yes, that kind of a relationship where only greetings are exchanged can be possible. But other than that, the boundaries that we set in the psychotherapy, or that the client and the therapist cannot have a dual relationship, there cannot be a teacher mentor and a client at the same time, there cannot be a supervisor and client at the same time. So these dual relationships are not allowed, but having greetings and social gathering only if the client and the therapist are comfortable with that, that can be done. But boundaries should be remain intact, that gifts shouldn't be exchanged, unnecessary texting, unnecessary messages should not be exchanged. So these boundaries remain there.
And in case of the abuse, so that the therapist is actually overstepping the boundary, what the client can do in that case?
As I told you earlier, that we have a supervision that is must for us. I would say that who are doing legal and ethical practice give importance to supervision. So when we are having sessions that are having continuous supervision by our supervisors, so they keep a track of where we are taking the relationship or where we are taking the sessions towards. So when they take this thing into consideration, they let us know, and then because of the supervision we can get back to the track, and seeing the discomfort of the client, we can also get an insight that this is not suitable for the client and this is going in some other direction. Have a reflection on yourself, because a good psychologist always have some reflection on their own self also, na? So that makes it easy to reflect on ourselves, and to make it very clear that the relationship is going on in some other direction and client is having discomfort, client is not saying something about it, and this is not good for therapy. So having a reflection and a supervisor helps in catering to these types of issues.
And can the client complain somewhere, in case of, despite supervision, the overstepping is still happening? Can the client report it somewhere?
A very good question, I would say, Eva. So yes, in terms of reporting, up till now we don't have any authority figures or any authoritative board that could take action in this regard. But at the same time, if the client is working at a clinic, there would be some body that would be in charge of keeping that therapist or that psychologist at the place, so they can be complained about it. Apart from that, the social media is a good power. The client can complain over the social media that this happened with the proofs and everything. I would say that that is not a good medium, because everyone can say anything about anyone. So that is not a good medium, but we don't have any authority figures up till now. But we are making boards, and we are making certified boards from where we get licensed. So I think in some time in future, inshallah, this will happen, that we have an authoritative figure who would be keeping everything into account, that psychologists should be trained, they should have particular qualification in order to take sessions, and they should be under supervision. So up till now it's not there. The bodies that could be reported should be the clinic that the client is coming in, hospital, or any organization that the client is coming in. Other than that, there is no such option up till now.
But interesting, the way I understand you, actually each organization had its own system, its own process, its own supervision.
making sure that they
Yes.
hire good psychologists and psychotherapists. Okay, you'll already answer this question, but I will ask it nevertheless. Is supervision a must for a therapist in your country?
In this regard, I would say that if you are associated with some responsible organization, you would need supervision definitely. But obviously, there are unethical practices also going on, because some psychologists or psychotherapists who carry private practices, they are not answerable to anyone. So we don't know they are under supervision or not. But I always tell my clients that create this awareness among your community, that whenever you look for a psychologist or psychotherapist, ask them a few questions, ask them about their expertise, their experience, their qualification, are they under supervision or not, because every professional needs supervision. Then only you can be on the right path, because at the end of the day we all are humans, right? So we need supervision, we need directions, we need some concerns to be addressed of ourselves also. So the supervision keeps you going on linear path, and it helps you to build insights into the different domains. So yes, as we do not have any regulatory body up till now for the psychologist or psychotherapist, so we are not restricted to the supervision. But the good organizations, the responsible ones, always see that their employees, including the psychologist and the psychotherapist, are under supervision.
What are the most common complaints that the
Okay.
client comes to
So the
therapy for?
common complaints in Pakistani culture, mostly that I have also seen or in my experience, is depression mainly, because feelings of being low and losing interest in things, and struggling with daily life functioning, is struggling with getting out of bed, is something that is very commonly seen in clients. Apart from that, anxiety, mostly in adolescents, mainly in adults too. So that is something, the feeling of nervousness, and feeling like everything will go apart. So the anxiety is there. At the same time, PTSD is coming very much in demand, and I would say in awareness, that people know of their traumas. They could be divorce, they could be death of someone, there could be multiple traumas that we have gained over time, and then we experience PTSD, and the clients come over with that issue. So PTSD is very common. Apart from that, stress, anger management, relationship counselings, then we have sexual dysfunctions, clients are going through erectile dysfunction. Then this is very much an awareness nowadays. People don't feel ashamed of talking about it, and getting a treatment out of it, because it's really causing their relationships being, so people are concerned about it, and they are taking treatment for that. If we talk about other complaints, there then we have grief, loss. In that situations also, client comes up and talks about it, needs some professional help for it. Then if I talk mainly about the adolescents population, self-esteem, self-identity is a big issue when they step up into their professional lives. So this is some very common issue that the clients come up with. Other than that, we have eating disorders, very common, because anxiety leads to some sort of other disorder as well, and comorbid with other disorders as well. So eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia, binge eating is very common, because in stress we do binge eating, so it is correlated, and comorbid disorder comes in. Then parental challenges, parental conflicts are some very common presenting complaint that the clients comes with, because obviously adolescents and after puberty, a client in adolescence needs power over their own life, because of the culture that we have, the collectivist society that we have, that power is not given to the individual, and that is how they develop the issues, the anxieties, and the parental involvement. I have also done a research on parental involvement and parental possessiveness. So that research also have brought many different insight to me, that includes the parents' possessiveness towards the child. And being in a collectivist society, we have to take this thing also in account, that the clients does not live individually and there must be some parental pressure to them which can be of discomfort and that could be of some concern to the client. So these things also comes in, and the parental pressures have a very big impact onto the client's life, because in adolescence and after puberty we want some authority over our own life. We want to take the power from the parents towards us, but in this collectivist society this is very difficult to happen, and hence the adolescents or the early adults also fall into this category of having parental challenges from their authority figures. Then obviously life transitions also come into place, that involves divorce, separation, moving on to a different place, moving abroad, leaving behind the parents. So people here are not used to this life transition of moving abroad smoothly, or going abroad for continuing your studies. So people here are not that much prone to leaving their family. So they have issues, they have abandonment issues, then they experience feelings of depression, feelings of anxiety, leaving their family behind, social anxiety, adjustment anxiety. So these things occurs. Then retirement happens, relocation happens. So these are some life transitions that also causes other disorders to comorbid.
And gender-wise, so what would you say? Who comes more like women or men or both equally to the therapy?
So in general, to the therapy nowadays, both are coming in equally, because both are very much aware about whatever they are experiencing. And I, being in this field, I feel so good and I feel so empowered that helping such people is a part of humanity, is a part of, community welfare work.
If you would share one tool, belief, or approach that is a must-have for you as a therapist, what would that be?
As a therapist, I would say that I would choose two of the tools, that are genuineness and empathy. But I would say that these are two, but they overlap each other. Because until and unless a therapist is not genuine with the client and empathetic towards the client, they cannot go into the deep and details that the client is giving. They cannot give assurance to the client. They cannot be attuned to the client's problem. So empathy, as we say, keeping a one foot in the client's shoe, so knowing that how it must be felt for the client. So genuineness and empathy goes hands in hand, and this is the core for the therapy, and to understand the client, to build alliance with the client, to let the client know how difficult it is, and how effortful it is, but at the same time someone is there to help, to provide you professional help, to understand you, to validate you, to give you that power that is missing for the time being in your life. So I think these are the two tools I believe that every therapist should have to build an alliance with your client.